Okay, so disclaimers first. I use leveling uniques to cover my resistances, give me more movement speed, and allow me to swap my links freely. Outside of that, the footage you are seeing right now is raw toxic rain damage from the gems and links. I run a very glass cannon-like setup because I'm very accustomed to PoE's leveling and familiar with how to leverage being a ranged character. I definitely recommend players learn to use this playstyle. However, for new players, getting more life and going slower might be the better option. Act 1 will be split up into 2 different boss fights and what setups you should have for both. For Brutus, you'll want to be running a Caustic Arrow linked with Mirage Archer and Void Manipulation alongside a 1-link Puncture. All of these gems are available from quest rewards, so you should have no problems acquiring the setup. As soon as the fight starts, you want to apply a Puncture to Brutus straight away and keep at a distance. This forces Brutus to move around and the Puncture will apply massive amounts of damage. Shoot Caustic Arrow in between keeping Puncture up every 8 seconds and Brutus should die in under 30 seconds. From a Veil, you're going to want to hit level 12 and swap to Toxic Rain as the single target is much better than Caustic Arrow. The links you're going to need are Toxic Rain, Mirage Archer and Void Manipulation along with a 1-link Withering Step which can be purchased from Nessa for 1 Transmutation Orb. I'd also recommend people get 2 Mana Flask rather than relying on good flask management. In the fight you're about to watch, I was using Puncture and Caustic Arrow alongside Toxic Rain and ended up doing rather poorly because of it. My Veil rarely moves, so the Puncture doesn't really add a lot of damage, and every time I was using Caustic Arrow I could have just used Toxic Rain and done more damage. The first thing you'll notice I did wrong at the start of the fight was that I should have been at range and preemptively shooting down Toxic Rain. I then should have used Withering Step to get close, apply the debuff, and then move back out. This is pretty much what I should have been doing every single 4 seconds throughout the fight, and my kill would have been much faster. However, even with all these mistakes that I made in the fight, it was still done in under a minute. Also, it's worth mentioning that as much as I like using the Smoke Mine to abuse early game blind, it just doesn't do enough in this fight and probably shouldn't be used at all, just for reference. Your leveling tree should look a little bit like this, grabbing all the projectile damage nodes, heading out towards Ballistic Mastery, grabbing Aspect of the Eagle, and then coming up towards Method to Madness. For Act 2 we'll be going over the Bandits, Weaver, and the Vaal Oversoul. All 3 bandits can be done in similar fashion. You get in close, put a smoke mine at your feet, detonate it before the fight starts, and then use Withering Step to inflict the debuff on your enemy. With good enough flask and life management, this pretty much effectively allows you to face tank the enemy boss. By the time you get up to killing Oak, you'll want to be using Skitterbots. To do this, you'll need either Int on an item, or have picked up a Lapis Amulet during your run. I wasn't fortunate enough to do that this run, so I just used Herald of Agony instead, but Skitterbots is the better setup. Alrighty, moving on to the Weaver though. He's done in a similar fashion, but what you're using Smoke Mine on is actually the little spiders. We're actively moving away from the Weaver himself because he does a lot of damage, and just like with my Veil, we want to use Withering Step to move in close to apply the debuff, and then move back away before continuing to fire. Whenever the Weaver actually retreats, I back myself into a corner so I can't get hit by too many spiders, I drop a smoke mine at my feet and then continue to fire. Using this method really simplifies the Weaver fight and it should be done in no time. Now the Vaal Oversoul is meant to be the final boss of the act, but in reality he's one of the simpler fights when you break him down. The reason why is that he only has 5 attacks and only 2 of them are dangerous, so you're free to stand still and put down as much damage as possible during the others. At the start of the fight, he's always going to shoot blue projectiles to summon minions. While doing this, you don't even need to smoke mine, you can actually just cast Withering Step and fire down Toxic Rain. After this, he will always leave the arena, so just clean up the mobs and wait for him to return. After he gets back, unless he's using either the laser or dropping rocks from the ceiling, you are free to attack again. In the event that he is using either of these two, you just have to move around while you shoot down Toxic Rain, and the fight should only last a small amount longer. Your skill tree at this time should look a little bit like this. You head out to the right, grab Hunter's Gambit, head across and down and get Acrobatics, and then we head back up and grab Thief's Craft for our tribute requirements. After you've done this, it's off to Act 3. Now Act 3 is probably one of the most important acts in terms of getting your proper gem links and aura setups going. You will be doing both your lab and library in order to get your Wither Totem and Curse set up into the build, along with swapping out Withering Step for Flame Dash so you can move faster. You should also add the Malevolence Aura to the build. I am unfortunately dumb and forgot to do it, so you won't see that in this recording, but it's what you're meant to do. Once you've got these setups up and running, you're going to want to get into the habit of using your Despair Curse on magic and rare packs, as your damage will be high enough that the mobs are actually worth slowing down and killing, and the additional experience really helps during this act. So the first big challenge of the act is Piety, and FYI I did really bad at this fight. So as soon as you see Piety, you want to walk up to her, the first thing you want to do is start firing down Toxic Rain. As soon as she becomes vulnerable, you're going to want to hit Withering Step, and then apply your Curse as fast as possible. The smoke mine you see me use at the start of this is actually unnecessary, as she mostly uses spells. This was a mistake, and I make this mistake all the time. So not too long after this, she'll either enter her fire form or her ice form. If she goes into her fire form, you're going to have to use your Quicksilver and try and run away as much as possible. Some people often think that during this phase the idea is you use your smoke mine to tank her. This is actually a really bad idea because in the event that she does hit you, she can one-shot you and kill you. So what you should be doing with your smoke mine is actually getting distance between yourself and Piety, and just waiting out the phase. Now, in the event that she enters her ice form, what you should be looking to do is hit her while just keeping out of her line of sight. This just comes down to play experience, and you'll see me mess it up at the start of the fight, but around the end of the fight, actually remember to do it properly and shoot her without being hit back. After you've killed Piety, it's off to the library. While you're there, you're going to want to pick up Flame Dash, Malevolence, and your Wither Totem set up. Once you have all these gems, you can head off to the lab and get some extra experience and get your Pathfinder Ascendancy. Your first Ascendancy points should be spent on Nature's Reprisal. Once you have all this, your damage setup is nearly complete and you're ready to take on Dominus. However, there is something I would like to mention for a lot of new players first. It should help out a lot. At this point during the leveling process, this is actually the best time to get your 4th link, and you pretty much won't replace this for a long time. What a lot of players, myself included, do is that we pick up other 4 links during this process and we actually sell them for about an alchemy. We then use this alchemy to buy our own exact 4 links. This will make your whole entire Act 10 campaign much quicker. It also kind of eliminates that RNG element. So once you do this and you get your 4th link, your gems are going to be Toxic Rain, Mirage Archer, Void Manipulation, and Vicious Projectiles. My only real tips for the Dominus fight is that you should only attack when you get the chance. Aside from that, it's pretty simple with the amount of damage we have at this point. Your damage setup should be put down Wither Totem, curse the enemy, use Toxic Rain while trying to dodge, and refreshing both the totem and curse when necessary. Do this and it should fall over without much of a challenge. Your skill tree should be heading down and getting Master Fletcher, then heading up and grabbing Coordination, heading to the right, getting Entropy, and then lastly getting Blood Siphon. Now there isn't actually a lot to say about Act 4 at this point. You have all your damage setups and nearly everything is dying instantly. Your damage rotation for all big bosses will be the same from here on out until Act 10. You drop down Wither Totem, preferably out of the way, you apply a curse and then use Toxic Rain until the enemy is dead, remembering to dodge and avoid as much damage as possible. At this point your skill tree should be heading out towards Fangs of the Viper, coming up and grabbing Lethal Assault, going to Cold Hearted Calculation, and then finally going up to Growth and Decay. After this, you're going to be running the same setup throughout the rest of the campaign until you get your 5th and 6th length respectively. However, at that point, you should be well and truly into maps. I would like to make a separate video about how to progress once you hit maps, so for now, I'm just going to include the rest of the pathing in the POB. I do eventually plan to remake this guide, but for now I don't have the time or the editing skills to make something that I feel I'll be truly satisfied with. So for now, I'm just going to leave it there, guys. Thanks for watching, like, subscribe, all that jazz. I will catch you all later.